All right, continuing on with our algebra class, here's our warm-up to start. So it's it's two diamond problems. What we want to do is we want to find the two missing numbers. So we want to find the two numbers that multiplied get you the top number and added get you the bottom number. Okay, so take a minute, pause the video, and try and figure out what the two numbers are for these. Okay, so with the first one, we got to find two numbers that multiply get you 16, but added together get you a negative 10, and that would be negative 8 and negative 2. Okay, so those would be our two numbers. When we multiply those, we end up with a positive 16, but when we add them, we get a negative 10. So you see how it does that. The next one, we get a negative 24. Multiplied gets you a negative 24, but added gets you a positive 5. That would get us an 8 and a negative 3. Okay. So those would be our two numbers that we would have for our answers, okay, to fill out these diamond problems. Now, these diamond problems are going to come into play when we deal with this chapter, or this section, because this section is factoring trinomials, part 1. Okay, we're dealing with what's called the a value is equal to 1. They're fairly simpler. They're kind of simpler, but they're still not super simple. So let's start this way. So we're going to do it showing it without the diamond problem first, but then after this, all the other ones that are going to follow are all going to be using diamond problems. So if we have this x squared plus 7x plus 10, first thing we want to do is we want to look at the last number, and we want to find what are the factors of 10. Factors of 10 are 1 and 10 and 2 and 5. Those are the only numbers that when you multiply together get you 10. So now what we want to do is we want to take those two numbers and we want to add them to get 7. And that's what we're looking for. Which pair, when added together, gets us 7? 1 and 10 gets us 11. That's not it. 2 and 5 gets us 7. So that's our answer. So 2 and 5 would be our two numbers. Now, once we have our two numbers, we're going to write it as x plus whatever that number is, and x plus whatever the other number is. Okay, and it's always that. And so we end up with our factors of x plus 5 and x plus 2. And that right there is our answer. Okay, so once we have our two numbers, we go x plus whatever the two numbers are. Now, sometimes those numbers will be negative, making it x minus a number. Okay, so we just have to watch out for those. Okay, so now here's how it would be set up if we're using a diamond problem for it to make it a little bit simpler, and it organizes everything for us. And since we've been dealing with diamond problems all year, it's still that same puzzle that we've been working on. So two numbers multiplied together get you a 10, but added together get you a 7. We've already done this. This was on the previous slide. And what we do is we take the last number, and that goes in the top, and the middle number goes in the bottom of it. And that's how we set up our diamond problem. Then we have to find our two missing numbers, which is 5 and 2. And those two numbers are our answers. And so we'd set up and rewrite it as x plus 5, x plus 2. And that's our solution. Okay. All right, so now let's look at this one. We're v squared plus 21v plus 20, and we want to set up our diamond problem. So take a second, set up the diamond problem, and if you're able to solve it, go all the way through and solve it, but at least set it up, get the last and middle number plugged in the right spot first. Okay, so the last number ends up being 20, so our top number is 20, and our middle number is 21, so that goes on the bottom. So now we got to find what two numbers multiplied together get us 20 and added together get us 21. And those two numbers would be 20 and 1. Okay, and those would end up being our answers. So now we'd end up writing v plus 20 and v plus 1. And that is our solution that we're trying to get. Okay, so those two side numbers are what we're looking for as our answers. All right, so take a second for this next one, set it up, solve it if you can, finding the, filling out the diamond problem and then writing your solution. Okay, so the top number of this, which is the last digit, is going to end up being 25. The middle number in this is negative 10, so we plug a negative 10 in. So now we got to go, okay, what two factors multiplied get us a 25? But added together gets us a negative 10. Well, since 25 is positive, the only way to get negative numbers is if they're both negative. So both those numbers are going to be negative. And when both those numbers are negative, and we add them together, we end up with negative 5 and negative 10. Oh, negative 5 again, which gets us negative 10. So that means our solution would be x minus 5, or k minus 5, because that's our variable, k minus 5 and k minus 5. Now, if you notice in the previous two examples, that last digit was positive in both of them. Now, when that's the case, that means that these two numbers are going to be the same sign. They always are. Okay? So if that last number's positive, they're always going to be the same sign. They'll either both be positive or they will both be negative. Okay? And a way to tell if they're going to be positive or negative is looking at the middle number. The middle number is negative, meaning both the numbers should be negative. Middle number is positive, they both should be positive. Okay, that's if that last digit was positive. So now, with this one, we notice that the last digit is now negative. Okay, so that last digit's now negative, meaning that we have our two numbers are going to end up being different signs. One's going to be positive, one's going to be negative. Our middle number's a positive 8. So now we got to find what two numbers multiplied together get us a negative 20, added together get us an 8. And since they're going to be negative or opposite signs, you can kind of think you're going to be subtracting. So what two factors of it when you subtract get you an 8? And that would end up being 10 and negative 2. 10 and negative 2, when added together, gets you a 8. And when multiplied, gets you a negative 20. So now our answer would be m plus 10 and m minus 2. Okay, so that would end up being our answer. Okay, so the next one, take a second. I want you to try to solve this one, find what the factors are of this. Okay, so the last digit in this one is negative 18, so that goes on the top. After negative 18, we have to find what the bottom number is, which is the middle number, which is negative 3. So two numbers multiplied get you a negative 18, meaning one's positive, one's negative, but added together gets you a negative 3. That gets us a negative 6 and a negative, nope, not a negative, positive 3, and a positive 3. And then you'd write your answer as x minus 6, or p minus 6, sorry. P minus 6, P plus 3. That end up being our solution. Okay. All right. Okay, so from this section, section 5 is your homework. So you are basically factoring all these. So use either, if you want to use the diamond, you can. It's a nice way to start because you can organize everything. Otherwise, you don't need to if you can find what the factors are. Okay. And from here, we're going to be moving on and making them actually more complex, adding a number in front of the x squared. So like 3x squared plus 7x plus 10. Okay, so we're going to have those types of problems coming up next.